In 1870, I was a quiet student, sketching a city in my notebook. A city of towering buildings, bustling streets, and endless possibilities. My drawings were vivid, almost alive, capturing every detail of a place I'd never seen. But a year later, that city burned to the ground in a fire that shocked the world. Was it coincidence, or something more? My name is lost to history, but my story isn't. Stick with me as I unravel the mystery of my sketches and the flames that followed. I was never the loudest in the classroom, always tucked away in the corner with my pencil and paper. My sketches were my escape, a world where I could build anything. In 1870, I began drawing a city unlike any other. It had grand avenues, ornate buildings, and a river cutting through its heart. Every night, I added more: street lamps, horse-drawn carriages, even the faces of imagined people. My teachers called it a distraction, but to me, it was real. I could almost hear the clatter of hooves on cobblestone. I named it my city, my secret masterpiece. No one else saw it, no one cared to look. Yet, each stroke felt like I was breathing life into it. I didn't know then that my drawings held a strange power, a power that would soon haunt me. My city wasn't just lines on paper. It was a vision of progress. I sketched factories with smokestacks, theaters with golden arches, and markets buzzing with energy. I'd spend hours perfecting the details: windows, door frames, even the cracks in the pavement. I imagined the people: merchants haggling, children running, couples strolling by the river. My classmates laughed, calling me a dreamer lost in fantasy. But I wasn't dreaming, I was building. Every night, I'd light a candle and work until my eyes burned. I felt a connection to this place, as if it existed somewhere beyond my pages. I couldn't explain it, but it was as real to me as the desk I sat at. The city felt alive, waiting to be born. One day, I overheard a teacher mention a real city, one that sounded eerily like mine. It was Chicago, a booming hub in 1870, full of wooden buildings and ambition. I'd never been there, never even seen a picture, yet my sketches mirrored its streets. The wide boulevards, the wooden sidewalks, the river splitting the city in two. It was all there in my notebook. I started to wonder if I was copying something I'd heard about. But how could I? My family was poor. We didn't travel or read newspapers. Still, the similarities shook me. I began sketching faster, almost feverishly, as if the city was calling me. Each page felt like a map to a place I was destined to find. My best friend, Thomas, was the only one who took my sketches seriously. He'd sit with me, watching as I drew bridges and church spires. "You're making a real place," he'd say, half joking, half awed. I laughed it off, but deep down, I believed him. My city felt too vivid to be fiction. I started adding darker details: alleys, crowded tenements, piles of hay in stables. I didn't know why. It just felt right. Thomas noticed my mood shift. "Why so grim?" he asked one day. I couldn't answer. The city was telling me something, and I was just the scribe. Every line I drew felt heavier, like a warning I couldn't yet read. By spring, my notebook was nearly full, pages bursting with my city's life. I'd drawn every corner, from the grandest mansions to the smallest shacks. But something strange started happening. My dreams were filled with smoke, screams, and a red glow in the sky. I'd wake up gasping, my hands smudged with pencil lead. I told myself it was just exhaustion, but the dreams kept coming. In them, my city was burning, flames licking the wooden buildings, the river reflecting a hellish glow. I tried to stop sketching, but my hands wouldn't listen. It was as if the city demanded to be finished. I was scared, but I couldn't stop. One night, I drew fire in my city. It started in a barn, spreading to nearby homes. I sketched the flames with a trembling hand, watching them consume my streets. I didn't want to, but I couldn't stop. The fire felt inevitable, like it was always meant to be there. When I showed Thomas, his face paled. "You're scaring me," he whispered. I tore the page out, but the image stayed in my mind. I hid my notebook under my bed, vowing to forget it. But the dreams grew worse, louder, hotter, more real. I started to fear my own creation, as if I'd drawn a curse. Summer came, and I tried to focus on school, but my city wouldn't let me go. I'd catch myself doodling its streets in the margins of my books. People noticed I was different, quieter, more withdrawn. My teacher confiscated my notebook once, calling it nonsense. She didn't understand. No one did. I started hearing whispers in my head, faint voices from my city. They spoke of wind, dry wood, and a spark that would change everything. I told Thomas, and he begged me to burn the notebook. "It's just paper," he said. But it wasn't. It was my city, and it was calling me. By autumn, I was obsessed. I'd sneak out at night to draw by moonlight, afraid to light a candle. My city was complete, every detail perfect, down to the last cobblestone. But the fire in my dreams was relentless. I saw it spread from the barn to the river, swallowing everything. I wrote notes in my sketches, dates, times, even a name, O'Leary. I didn't know where it came from, but it felt true. My hands shook as I wrote, as if someone else was guiding them. I was no longer in control. The city was alive, and it was angry. I was just its vessel. Thomas stopped talking to me. He said I was losing my mind, and maybe he was right. I'd stare at my sketches for hours, searching for answers. The city looked exactly like Chicago, a place I'd never seen. I overheard travelers talking about its growth, its wooden skyline, its dry autumn winds. Every word matched my drawings. I started to believe I'd seen the future, or worse, created it. I tried to warn people, but who would listen to a boy with a notebook? My parents thought I was sick. My teachers thought I was lazy. Only I knew the truth. My city was doomed. In October 1871, I couldn't sleep. The dreams were too vivid, the fire too real. I'd wake up smelling smoke, though my room was clear. I dug out my notebook, flipping through pages of my city in flames. Every detail was there. The barn, the wind, the chaos. I wrote a final note. October 8th, 1871. I didn't know why, but it felt final. I hid the notebook again, praying I was wrong. I wanted to forget, to be normal again. But deep down, I knew something terrible was coming. My city was waiting, and so was the fire. The news came on October 9th, 1871. Chicago had burned. A fire started in a barn, just like in my sketches. It spread through the wooden city, driven by fierce winds. Thousands lost their homes, hundreds died. I sat frozen, listening to the reports. The barn belonged to a family named O'Leary, exactly as I'd written. My notebook was under my bed, but I didn't need to look. Every detail matched, the streets, the river, the flames. I felt sick, as if I'd caused it. My parents didn't notice my panic. They were too busy discussing the tragedy. I wanted to scream, to tell someone, but who would believe me? I finally pulled out my notebook, my hands trembling as I turned the pages. There it was, my city, now ashes in the real world. The fire's path was identical, starting in the barn, leaping the river, destroying the heart of Chicago. I'd drawn it all a year before. I tried to tell myself it was a coincidence, but the details were too precise. The voices in my dreams, the name O'Leary, the date. It was all there. I felt like I'd cursed the city by sketching it. I wanted to tear the pages apart, but they felt sacred, like a prophecy I'd been chosen to write. Thomas came to me a week later, his face pale. He'd heard about Chicago and remembered my sketches. "Did you know?" he asked, his voice shaking. I couldn't lie to him. I showed him the notebook, every page a mirror of the disaster. He didn't speak, just stared at the drawings. "You didn't cause it," he said finally, but his eyes said otherwise. I wanted to believe him, but guilt gnawed at me. Had I drawn the fire into existence? Was my pencil a spark that lit the flames? I hid the notebook again, vowing never to draw. The town buzzed with talk of Chicago's rebuilding. People called it a phoenix, rising from the ashes. But I couldn't shake the weight of my sketches. I stopped going to school, afraid of what I might draw next. My parents thought I was grieving for a city I'd never seen. They didn't know I was grieving for my own mind. I burned one page of my notebook, watching the flames eat my city. It felt like a betrayal, but also a relief. The voices in my head quieted, but only for a moment. The city still lived in me, demanding to be remembered. Months passed, and I tried to move on. I avoided pencils, paper, anything that could pull me back. But at night, I'd see my city in my dreams, rebuilt, stronger, made of brick and stone. I resisted the urge to draw it, afraid of what might happen. Chicago was rebuilding, just as I saw it, with skyscrapers replacing wooden shacks. I wondered if my sketches were still guiding it, even without my pencil. I felt like a ghost, tied to a city I'd never visited. My notebook stayed hidden, but its weight never left me. I was its prisoner forever. I started reading about Chicago, desperate for answers. Newspapers described its new buildings, its fireproof designs. Every detail matched my dreams. I wondered if I was connected to the city in some cosmic way. Was I a prophet, or just a boy who got lucky, or unlucky? I tried talking to a priest, but he dismissed me as troubled. God doesn't speak through sketches, he said. But I wasn't so sure. My city had burned, just as I'd drawn it. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was part of something bigger, something I didn't understand. By 1872, I was a shadow of myself. People noticed, but no one knew why. I'd stopped speaking to Thomas. He couldn't look at me without fear. I wanted to destroy my notebook, but I couldn't. It was all I had left of my city. I hid it in a locked box, buried under my clothes. Sometimes, I'd hear it calling me, begging to be opened. I resisted, but the dreams never stopped. Chicago was growing, and so was my guilt. I felt responsible for every life lost, every home burned. My sketches were a curse I couldn't escape. One night I gave in. I pulled out the notebook and drew again. Not Chicago, but a new city, one of steel and glass. It was beautiful, free of flames. I felt a spark of hope, like I could create something good. But the moment I finished, the dreams returned, new fires, new destruction. I tore the pages out, sobbing. I couldn't trust my own hands anymore. Whatever power I had, it wasn't a gift. It was a burden, one I'd carry forever. I swore I'd never draw again, no matter what the city whispered. Years later, I heard Chicago had become a marvel, a city of skyscrapers and dreams. I never visited, too afraid of what I'd find. My notebook stayed locked away, untouched but never forgotten. I wondered if my sketches had shaped the city's rebirth, or if I was just a bystander to fate. No one knew my story. No one would believe it. I was the forgotten student, lost in the shadow of a fire I might have foreseen. My name didn't matter, but my city did. It lived on, and so did my guilt. I grew old, but the dreams never faded. Chicago thrived, a testament to human will, but I couldn't share in its triumph. I'd seen it burn before it happened, and that knowledge haunted me. I kept my notebook hidden, a relic of my strange connection to a city I'd never seen. Sometimes, I'd hear whispers of other disasters, other cities, but I never drew again. I was too afraid of what might come true. My story was a secret, one I'd take to my grave. But I knew one thing. My city had spoken, and I had listened. As I aged, I tried to make sense of what happened. Was I a prophet, a dreamer, or just a boy with a pencil? The fire of 1871 was blamed on a cow, a lantern, a careless moment. But I knew better. My sketches held too many truths to be chance. I read about other fires, other cities, wondering if someone else had drawn them too. I never found answers, only questions. My notebook stayed locked, a Pandora's box I dared not open. Chicago moved on, but I was stuck in 1871, reliving the flames. My city was gone, but its ghost lived in me. I started writing instead of drawing, hoping words were safer. I wrote about my city, my guilt, my fear. The pages filled with my story, but I never shared them. Who would believe a man who claimed he foresaw a disaster? I was nobody, a forgotten student with a forgotten gift. Yet, writing helped. It was a way to confess without being judged. I described every detail, the barn, the wind, the screams. It felt like purging a poison, but the weight never fully lifted. My city was still there, watching me. In my later years, I heard about Chicago's World's Fair in 1893. The city had become a beacon of progress, just as I dreamed. I wondered if my sketches had planted a seed, guiding its rebirth. I wanted to visit, to see if the streets matched my pages, but fear held me back. What if I saw my city, alive and real? What if it saw me? I stayed away, content with stories of its glory. My notebook was my only connection, a bridge between my world and Chicago's. I guarded it like a secret I didn't fully understand. People around me lived normal lives, untouched by visions of fire. I envied them. My gift, or curse, set me apart, a silent burden I carried alone. I never married, never had children to pass my story to. It was too heavy, too strange. I wondered if others like me existed, artists whose creations shaped the world. I searched for them in books, in whispers, but found nothing. I was alone with my city, my sketches, my truth. Chicago thrived, but I was its shadow, forever tied to its ashes. One night, I opened my notebook for the last time. The pages were brittle, the pencil marks faded. Yet the city was still there, vivid as ever. I traced the streets with my finger, remembering every detail. The barn, the river, the flames, it was all so clear. I cried, not for the fire, but for the boy who drew it. He was gone, replaced by an old man, with too many questions. I closed the notebook, knowing I'd never open it again. It was time to let my city go, even if it never let me go. I burned the notebook in my fireplace, watching the pages curl into ash. It felt like losing a part of myself, but also like freedom. The voices stopped, the dreams faded. Chicago was no longer mine. It belonged to the world. I felt lighter, but not whole. The fire of 1871 had marked me, just as it marked the city. I wondered if burning the notebook broke the connection, or if it was too late. I'd never know. All I had left was my story, and even that felt like it belonged to someone else. As I neared the end of my life, I thought about legacy. Chicago was my legacy, in a way, even if no one knew it. My sketches had captured its soul before it burned, and maybe after. I didn't need fame or recognition. I just needed to know I'd mattered. I wrote one final letter, telling my story, but I never sent it. It sits in a drawer, waiting for someone to find it. Maybe they'll think I was mad, or maybe they'll believe. Either way, my city lives on, in brick, in steel, in memory. I visited a church one last time, not to pray, but to listen. I wanted to hear my city's voice again, but it was silent. The connection was gone, burned away with my notebook. I felt peace, but also loss. Chicago didn't need me anymore. It never did. I was just a boy who saw too much, drew too much, felt too much. My story was over, but the city's wasn't. It would grow, change, endure. I smiled, knowing I'd been part of it, even if no one else did. Now, as I tell you this, I'm an old man, my hands too weak to hold a pencil. But I see my city clearly, every street, every flame. I don't know why I was chosen to draw it, or if I was chosen at all. Maybe it was chance, or fate, or something else. All I know is that I sketched the city in 1870, and a year later, it burned. My name is forgotten, but my story isn't. I've carried it all these years, and now I pass it to you. Keep it safe, keep it alive, keep it burning. This is my truth, my confession, my legacy. Chicago rose from the ashes, and I rose with it in my own way. I don't expect you to believe me, but I hope you'll listen. My sketches are gone, but their echoes remain. If you ever visit Chicago, look at its streets, its towers, its river. See if you can feel me there, a forgotten student who saw it all before it happened. I'm part of the city, and it's part of me. Thank you for hearing my story. It's all I have left. If this story of a forgotten student and a city in flames moved you, subscribe to the channel for more tales that blend history, mystery, and the unexplainable. Hit that button, join our community, and let's uncover the stories that time forgot, together.